The moment we entered Europa's ocean, our instruments went haywire, and then our minds did. This deep space sci-fi story explores what happens when human fear meets an alien consciousness so vast it thinks in oceans and dreams in light. The ice screamed. It was a sound that vibrated not just through the hull of the Obsidian Eel, but seemed to resonate in the marrow of my bones, a high-pitched tectonic shriek of frozen water under 1 billion tons of pressure. I adjusted the haptic feedback on my pilot's harness, trying to dampen the sensation, but the trembling persisted. We were 6 kilometers down, drilling through the last resolute layer of the Jovian moon's crust, leaving the sterile safety of Galileo's finger station far above us. My name is Dr. Aris Thorne, and I have spent my entire adult life dreaming of this darkness. Beside me, navigating the complex telemetry of our nuclear thermal drill, was Lena Volkov, a woman whose stoicism was usually as impenetrable as the ice we were breaching, yet I could smell the sharp metallic tang of her anxiety spiking the recycled air of the cockpit. The claustrophobia in a vessel this size is a physical weight. The Obsidian Eel was a marvel of engineering, a sleek, needle-nosed submersible designed to withstand pressure that would crush a conventional submarine into a dense sphere of scrap metal. But right now it felt like a coffin. The interior was lit only by the amber glow of the status monitors and the harsh, rhythmic strobe of the exterior drill lasers reflecting off the ice wall ahead. Every readout was critical. Every groan of the hull was a potential death sentence. I looked over at Commander Jarek Harth in the rear engineering bay, his face bathed in the blue light of the reactor diagnostics. He gave me a curt nod, his fingers dancing over the holographic interface. We were the intruders here, piercing a seal that had remained unbroken for millions of years. Then the screaming stopped. The violent vibration that had rattled my teeth for the last 12 hours vanished in an instant, replaced by a sensation of weightlessness that made my stomach lurch into my throat. The resistance on the drill head dropped to 0. The forward cameras, previously blinded by the whiteout of pulverized ice, stared into a void of absolute, crushing blackness. We were through. We were in the ocean. I initiated the buoyancy protocols, stabilizing our descent as the submersible slipped silently into the subsurface abyss. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The silence was heavier than the ice. We were floating in an alien womb, the first human beings to navigate the hidden waters of Europa. I engaged the external floodlights, my finger hovering over the switch with a trembling hesitation I hadn't expected. When I flipped the toggle, the darkness didn't just retreat, it seemed to swallow the light. The beams cut through the water, revealing particulate matter drifting like snow in a winter storm. Marine snow, the detritus of the ice shell above. It was beautiful and haunting. We descended further, the depth gauge ticking over numbers that felt abstract in their magnitude. 10 kilometers below the ice, 20. The water temperature was hovering just below freezing, kept fluid by the immense pressure and salinity. It was Lena who saw it first. Her voice was a whisper, barely audible over the hum of the life support scrubbers. She pointed to the starboard viewport. At first, I thought it was a malfunction in the glass, a trick of the eye caused by fatigue and the oppressive darkness. But then I saw it, a faint, rhythmic pulsing in the distance. It wasn't the harsh white of our floodlights, nor the sterile blue of Cherenkov radiation. It was a soft, iridescent violet, undulating like a heartbeat. I killed the exterior floods, plunging us back into darkness to get a better look. The moment our artificial lights died, the ocean ignited. It wasn't just one light. Below us, stretching out like a submerged galaxy, was a vast, sprawling reef of bioluminescence. But this was unlike any coral or deep-sea vent community on Earth. Structures the size of cathedrals rose from the depths, spiraling towers of translucent, jelly-like material that pulsed with inner light. Ribbons of neon teal and magenta wove between them, connecting the structures like optic fibers. It was a metropolis of light in a world of eternal night. I steered the Obsidian Eel closer, my breath catching in my throat. The sensors went wild, picking up distinct energy signatures that defied classification. It wasn't thermal, it wasn't radioactive. It was bioelectric, but on a scale that suggested a singular, massive organism rather than a colony. As we glided over the canopy of this alien forest, I felt a strange pressure at the base of my skull, a prickly sensation like the static charge before a lightning strike. I rubbed my temples, glancing at Lena. She was clutching the armrests of her chair, her eyes wide, staring into the abyss. She asked if I heard that. I asked her what she meant. She said it sounded like a choir, but she wasn't hearing it with her ears. Yarrick called out from the back, his voice edged with panic, reporting that the reactor output was fluctuating in time with the pulsing lights outside. The environment was interacting with our power source, or so we thought. We brought the ship to a hover near one of the spiraling towers. It was immense, a delicate lattice of biological glass. I deployed the remote manipulator arm to take a sample, my movements precise, practiced 1,000 times in the simulator. But as the mechanical claw reached out, the light in the tower shifted. It changed from a calm violet to a jagged, angry red. The change rippled outward, spreading through the reef faster than the speed of sound. The entire seascape turned the color of blood. Lena gasped, her hand flying to her head. She screamed that it was loud, too loud. I didn't hear anything, but the pressure in my skull intensified, becoming a throbbing migraine. I pulled the manipulator arm back, and instantly the red faded, returning to the soothing violet. It was a reaction, a defense mechanism. But it was fast, too fast for chemical signaling. Jarek shouted that the patterns on the hull sensors weren't random noise. He threw the data onto the main view screen. It was a waveform, a complex, organized waveform. I looked at it, and a chill that had nothing to do with the external temperature froze my blood. It looked exactly like an EEG, a brainwave. We weren't looking at a reef. We were looking at a neural network. A brain the size of an ocean. I tried to rationalize it, my scientific training fighting against the impossible conclusion, but the evidence was mounting. Lena, who had been terrified of deep water since she was a child, suddenly started weeping. She pointed out the window. The lights outside had changed again. They were no longer abstract swirls. They were forming shapes, coalescing. Drifting in the water in front of the viewport were shapes made of light, jagged, sharp, predatory shapes. They looked like sharks, not Europan life forms, but earth sharks, great whites, the monsters of Lena's childhood nightmares. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The ecosystem wasn't just reacting to our presence, it was reacting to our minds. It was reading us. Lena's fear was being broadcast, and the bioluminescence was simulating it, mirroring her terror back at us. I told everyone to calm down, to clear their minds. It was an impossible order. How do you tell someone not to think of a pink elephant? By telling them, you ensure the thought exists. Jarek, whose wife had passed away just before the mission, was staring at the port side window. The lights there were soft, golden, forming the silhouette of a woman. He unbuckled his harness, floating toward the glass, whispering her name. The ship groaned as the pressure differential shifted, the external fluid seeming to thicken, to press harder against us. The golden silhouette reached out a hand of light, touching the glass exactly where Jarek's hand rested. The feedback loop was establishing itself. The ocean was learning from us, pulling memories, fears, and desires out of our synapses and painting them in light. I needed to break the connection. I grabbed the controls, intending to thrust us upward, away from this psychic mirror. But the controls were sluggish. The bioelectric field outside was interfering with our navigation systems. We were trapped in the gravity of our own thoughts. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on something neutral, something mathematical. The Fibonacci sequence, prime numbers, pure logic. I visualized the numbers floating in a white void, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. I forced the sequence to override the panic rising in my chest. Slowly, I opened one eye. The angry red sharks and the ghostly silhouette were fading. In their place, the ocean was arranging itself into perfect geometric spirals, fractals of blinding white light repeating into infinity. It was working. I shouted at the others to focus on math, on logic, on anything abstract. Lena began reciting the periodic table. Jarek, tears streaming down his face, started listing the components of the fusion drive. The chaotic storm of the motional constructs settled into a rigid, crystalline lattice of light. The ocean was listening. It was compliant. But then it pushed back. It wasn't an attack. It was a query. A massive surge of psychic pressure slammed into us, not carrying an image, but a concept. Curiosity. The ocean wanted to know what we were. It didn't just want our surface thoughts. It wanted the core of us. I felt my mind being flayed open, memories I had buried for decades surfacing with crystal clarity. The smell of my mother's kitchen, the pain of a broken arm in 3rd grade, the shame of a failed experiment. It was all being dragged out, displayed in a swirling vortex of colors outside the ship. The Obsidian Eel was surrounded by a hurricane of our collective consciousness. We were no longer observers. We were the observed. The separation between the interior of the sub and the exterior ocean felt like it was dissolving. I wasn't sure if I was piloting the ship or if the ship was a projection of my mind. I realized then that we couldn't just leave. If we fled, we would leave a part of ourselves here, etched into this planetary mind. And if we stayed, we would be dissolved. I made a choice. I focused on a single image: Earth, the blue marble, the fragility of it, the beauty of it. I projected the intent of peace, of distinct separation. We are us, you are you. I pushed that thought out with every ounce of mental fortitude I possessed. The swirling vortex paused. The lights dimmed. The crushing pressure in my skull alleviated. The ocean retreated, the bioluminescence fading back to that initial rhythmic violet pulse. It understood. It had tasted us, categorized us, and now it was releasing us. I engaged the thrusters. The Obsidian Eel surged upward, away from the cathedral of light, back toward the cold, indifferent ice. We didn't speak during the ascent. There were no words for the violation or the wonder of what we had experienced. We breached the surface hours later, the drill hole sealing behind us with slush. As we sat in the decontamination chamber of Galileo's finger, shivering despite the warmth, I knew we would never be the same. We had gone looking for alien life, for bacteria or simple fish. Instead, we had found a mirror that looked back, a planetary consciousness that knew us better than we knew ourselves. I looked at Lena and Jarek. We shared a look that cemented a pact of silence. How could we report this? Who would believe that the ocean of Europa didn't just support life, but was life? The report would say we found bioluminescent algae, but when I close my eyes at night, I still see the lights, and I know deep down that in the darkness of that ocean, the lights are still dreaming of us. If you love sci-fi stories that explore alien intelligence and the dark corners of the human mind, hit like, subscribe, and join the channel. New stories drop regularly.